Welcome back, everybody. This is a quick build video on the Crossfire. I was going to do one also on the Baja, but they're so similar, with the only major difference being internal and external reverse. But my suspension modifications were virtually the same, just different brands of shocks and stuff. So I'll keep it with the Crossfire for now. Get a lot of questions about how do they get the wheels on, what types of shocks are you running, what did you do to the engine, what's the top speed. So I'll do a quick walkthrough and show you the front end and the suspension and then the wheels, and we'll go from there. So first up, on this awesome front end, I got the eBay Predator shocks. I just googled Crossfire 150R. You go on eBay or anything like that, you just type in Crossfire 150R. These shocks pop right up. They are 18-inch on center. They're called Predators. They're getting a little pricey. When I got them, they were $199, but I know the price jumped up, I guess, with supply and demand being an issue. When I first got this buggy, I drove out to Ohio to go get it. It was pretty rough. The front was pretty well racked, had a bent tie rod. It had just all the Heim joints were blown out. The steering rack was seized. It had 2 missing teeth, and the engine was blown. So what I ended up doing was ordering a whole ton of parts through JD and Amazon and slowly piecing it back together. With the front end, I completely rebuilt the rack with an old rack from a buggy that I had junked. So it's got a new gear inside, and I had to heat this one up with the torch and bend it straight. Came out near perfect. I was happy with it. Then I had to put all new joints on. We've got all new upper and lower ball joints, tie rod ends, and all the Heim joints. So these are the Heim joints here. You can see, nice shiny new, and I painted everything. So I left the control arms the way they were. I didn't touch them, I just repainted them. But all the ball joints are new, tie rods, and then the shocks came out beautiful. They bolted right in. Completely sanded down this frame. My students and I at my school, for a summer project, from learning loss due to COVID, the students were allowed to come in and work on hand skills. So it wasn't so much about the education, it was about using tools, organizational skills, things like that. So I had them tackle this bad boy. We sanded, wire wheeled, and then primed it and painted it. It's a Krylon color. It's actually got cool metal flake in it. I don't know if you can see. Get real close here. There you go. Yeah, it's a cool metal flake. Pretty close to the original paint. I am very happy with it. It coated very well. This buggy took about 5 cans of spray paint. There was a couple rough spots where the metal was rough, but nothing rotted through. It's just pretty pitted. But again, all in all, very solid. So I'm happy with it. Next up, the wheels. These are CF Moto 600 quad tires and rims. They're 12-inch rims with 25-inch tires. And yes, you have to have an adapter. Now, even though the fronts are the exact same bolt pattern, the center hub for our front ends on the Crossfires and the Dunes and the Punishers, they're all a large center bore. So I had to get an adapter that fit in there. And it's the same bolt pattern, 4x110. And that's a 1-inch spacer. And even with the 1-inch spacer, because of the larger tire, it still rubs. You can see the rub marks. On the rear, you have to get an adapter and a spacer. Back spacing is way different. So that is a 1.5-inch spacer. And the adapter, the rear axles on all Crossfires, Dunes, and Punishers, is 4x137. So I had to get a 4x137 adapter to adapt the 4x110 pattern on the wheels. And again, the spacer to push that tire away from the frame. On this side, it was definitely necessary because look how close it comes to the muffler. So that's how we got the wheels and tires on there. I was going to experiment with the gearing, even though people are a little hesitant because it's the dual chain system on here. You can go to a single sprocket on both the engine and the axle, and a single chain. The rear shocks are NTCs. They are very similar to your typical RFY shocks and stuff like that. They seem to be a little bit more sturdy, a little less bouncy. I have to bring all of this in, my buggy, the Dune, and this to my local motorcycle shop and have them all nitrogen charged. But right now, with 60 pounds of air and them adjusted pretty far, it's a nice cushy ride. So these shocks are 14 inches on center, 14 and a half, sorry, 14 and a half inches on center. A little windy out, it is very cold. I've got the JD slide throttle kit in there with the spacer to adapt the slide throttle cable. Back here to my Nibbi carburetor. That is the Nibbi 28mm to the Nibbi intake manifold. This engine was completely replaced and rebuilt. The first engine that was in it, the cylinder was smoked and the timing chain was stretched. I did not know that. I completely rebuilt it, and then when I put it back together and fired it up, it bent some valves in my brand new head. JD was very gracious, got me a new head very quick, and I was able to put it back together. So this engine here was my backup engine after I roasted the other one. This has been completely sanded down, completely stripped, washed, primed, and painted. And I had to get the different plastics from JD at gotbuggies.com because I went with the Naraku cylinder and the Naraku head instead of the SSPG head. So I had to get new plastics. Everything is new. I've got the A14 Cam, Naraku cylinder, Naraku piston. The Naraku head has the larger ports, or at least it's matched more to the intake and exhaust. It's also got the larger exhaust studs under there. And then on this side, I got the custom Mackie exhaust. While it looks completely stock, it is nowhere near it. I cut off this end and this end. You can see the welds there. I put a piece of conduit all the way through the muffler. I completely gutted the inside of this muffler. This whole thing was emptied out. And I put a piece of conduit straight through and then welded it back together. So it's got a little rasp to it, a little bit noisier, and definitely a noticeable mod. I mean, if you can't afford any other aftermarket pipes, I definitely recommend getting them. But if you got a welder, then what's the harm in just opening up a jug, right? Then we got the Polaris seats in here. Both of my buggies had the Polaris seats. The passenger seat just bolted right down. It was nothing really difficult. The driver's side, I used the original racks, so the seat is still fully adjustable. I just had to weld this bar in and the bar in the rear to the new Polaris seat frame, and then I just drilled the holes and bolted the rack exactly how it was on the Baja seat. It's not a perfect fit. It sticks out a little bit on the edge, but it is still adjustable and oh, so much more comfortable. And you're looking at Amazon seatbelts. They fit amazing. My only major disappointment, and these seatbelts are very comfortable, they're very secure. My only major disappointment was in all the pictures, it was supposed to have metal clips on the back so that you can bolt it up to the original spot. But instead, they gave me these metal adjusters and you wrap it around the bar and lock it in. And I only zip tied it just to keep the excess off. I could cut the excess off and burn it, but if somebody has to adjust them or move them around, I left them zip tied for now. But that was the only disappointment. The seatbelts fit amazing. They're very, like I said, very comfortable. So this buggy, like I said, I mean, it came to me in pieces and I've just been slowly putting it back together. I'm really happy with it. Again, the only thing I want to change is possibly the gearing in the rear. And yeah, it's pretty much done. I'm going to get a different air filter on it. But she runs great. Got a brand new battery. And let's get it fired up for you. Switch is on. Got pretty high compression, so might invest in one of them high torque starters. There you go.